The morning sun peeked through the blinds as Jasmine and Jordan finished packing their bags. The twin sisters had been planning this trip to Paris for 3 years, ever since they started business school. It wasn't just any trip. It was their reward for countless late-night studying, for the tears shed over difficult exams, and for pushing each other to excellence even when they felt like giving up. "Did you pack the fancy shoes?" Jasmine asked, zipping up her suitcase with a satisfied smile. "Of course, can't go to Paris without them," Jordan replied, carefully placing her passport in her travel wallet. "I still can't believe we're actually doing this." The twins shared a look that said more than words could, a look that held their shared history, their identical struggles, and their matching dreams. They had saved up for premium seats on transatlantic airlines, wanting to start their celebration the moment they boarded the plane. Even though their father, Anthony, was the CEO of Global Air Holdings, one of the biggest airline groups in the world, the sisters never used his connections. They believed in making their own way. "Dad offered again to set us up with first-class tickets on his airline," Jordan said, checking their Uber app to see how far away their ride was. Jasmine shook her head. "And I told him again, we got this. We earned this trip ourselves." The airport was buzzing with activity when they arrived, 3 hours early for their international flight. Both sisters were organized and punctual, traits they'd gotten from their mother. They rolled their matching navy blue suitcases toward the transatlantic check-in counter, excitement building with each step. "Next, please," called the airline representative, a woman with tight blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun. The twins approached together, passports and booking confirmations ready. "Good morning," Jasmine said with a bright smile. "We're checking in for the Paris flight." The representative glanced at them briefly, then at their documents, her expression changing subtly. She typed something into her computer, frowned, then typed again. "There seems to be a problem with your reservation," she said, not looking up. Jordan leaned forward. "What kind of problem?" "We confirmed everything last week." "The flight is overbooked," the representative said flatly. "Your premium seats have been downgraded to economy." Jasmine pulled out her phone. "That can't be right. We have confirmation emails showing our premium seats were paid for in full." She turned her phone around to show the email, but the representative barely glanced at it. "The system shows you've been downgraded. There's nothing I can do about it." The twins exchanged glances. Something wasn't right. Around them, other passengers, none who looked like them, were being checked into premium seats without any issues. "Could you please check again?" Jordan asked politely. "We booked these seats months ago and received confirmation." The representative's mouth tightened. "Listen," she said, her voice rising just enough for people nearby to hear. "There's nothing we can do about it. Either take the economy seats or get lost." The words hung in the air like a slap. Several travelers turned to stare. A middle-aged couple behind them in line started whispering. "I'd like to speak to a supervisor, please," Jasmine said, keeping her voice steady despite the heat rising to her cheeks. The representative rolled her eyes before picking up a phone. A few minutes later, a man in a Navy uniform approached. "What seems to be the problem?" he asked, directing his question to the representative rather than the twins. "These passengers are unhappy with their seating assignment," she explained, as if they were being unreasonable. Jordan stepped forward. "We booked and paid for premium seats months ago. Now we're being told they've been given away due to overbooking." The supervisor barely looked at their documentation before shaking his head. "Unfortunately, overbooking does happen, and seat assignments can change. We can offer you economy class or a rebooking on tomorrow's flight." "But our hotel in Paris is already paid for," Jasmine pointed out. "And we have confirmation of our premium seats right here." "Company policy," the supervisor said with a shrug that suggested the conversation was over. As they were speaking, an elderly couple stepped up to the next counter. The twins couldn't help but notice how differently they were treated. Warm smiles, friendly conversation, and when they mentioned their seats weren't together, the agent immediately found them better seats with extra legroom. "This doesn't feel right," Jordan whispered to her sister. "Look around." Jasmine did, and what she saw made her stomach tighten. Every person being processed smoothly through the premium line was white. A family with small children who had arrived after them was already heading toward security, premium boarding passes in hand. We need to speak to another supervisor, Jasmine decided. What followed was 20 minutes of being passed from one airline employee to another, each one more dismissive than the last. The final manager, a woman named Heather, barely looked up from her clipboard as she declared there was absolutely nothing that can be done. Maybe you should fly with an airline that caters more to your demographic, Heather suggested with a thin smile that didn't reach her eyes. Jordan, usually the quiet one of the pair, felt something snap inside her. Excuse me? What exactly do you mean by our demographic? Heather's smile remained fixed. I simply meant that perhaps another airline might better meet your expectations. Jasmine placed a calming hand on her sister's arm, but her own heart was pounding. This wasn't about seats anymore. This was something else entirely. Jordan, she said quietly, take out your phone. Record everything. Jordan nodded and discreetly began recording as they made one final attempt to reason with the staff. We've paid for premium seats, Jasmine stated clearly. We have confirmation. We'd like to understand why we're being denied these seats when others are not. Heather glanced at the phone, her smile faltering slightly. Look, we have standards for our premium cabins. I suggest you take what you're offered or find another way to Paris. The words hung in the air, their meaning unmistakable to everyone within earshot. A few passengers looked away uncomfortably. Others pretended not to hear. The twins stepped away from the counter, a mixture of anger, humiliation, and disbelief washing over them. They found a quiet corner of the terminal and looked at each other, a silent conversation passing between them as it often did. We've never used Dad's position, Jordan said quietly. This isn't about getting special treatment, Jasmine agreed. This is wrong on every level. She pulled out her phone and scrolled to a contact they rarely used for personal matters. Dad needs to know what's happening here, she said firmly. Not because we want special treatment, but because nobody should be treated this way. Jordan nodded, her expression resolute. Make the call. Jordan's finger hovered over the call button, but she paused, looking up at her sister. Wait, she said. Let's try one more time before we call Dad. I want to be absolutely sure we've done everything we can ourselves. Jasmine nodded, squaring her shoulders. The twins had been raised to stand on their own feet and solve their own problems. Calling their father was a last resort, and they both knew it. You're right, Jasmine agreed. Let's ask for the station manager, the highest person in charge at the airport. They walked back to the check-in area, this time approaching a different counter. A young man with kind eyes looked up as they approached. How can I help you today? He asked, his voice friendly. We'd like to speak with the station manager, please, Jordan said firmly but politely. We've been having an issue with our booking that several staff members haven't been able to resolve. The young man looked uncertain. The station manager is very busy. It's important, Jasmine added. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't. After a moment's hesitation, the young man picked up a phone. He spoke quietly, then nodded. She'll be out in a few minutes if you could wait over there. He pointed to a row of seats near the wall. The twins thanked him and moved to the waiting area. 15 minutes passed, then 20. Around them, the airport hummed with activity, families hugging goodbye, business travelers rushing with coffee in hand, airline staff directing passengers. They're hoping we'll give up and leave, Jordan whispered, checking her watch for the third time. Not happening, Jasmine replied, her eyes fixed on the door marked Staff Only. Finally, a woman in a crisp uniform emerged. She looked harried and irritated before she even reached them. Her name tag read, Patricia. I understand you wanted to see me, she said, not offering to shake hands or even sit down. Jasmine took a deep breath. Yes, thank you for coming. We booked and paid for premium seats months ago, but we're now being told they've been given away due to overbooking. We have confirmation emails showing our seats were confirmed. Patricia barely glanced at the phone Jasmine held out. Overbooking happens, she said bluntly. It's in the terms and conditions you agreed to when you purchased your tickets. We understand that, Jordan said. But what we don't understand is why we were selected for downgrading when passengers who arrived after us were given premium seats without any issue. Patricia's eyes narrowed slightly. Are you suggesting something? We're just stating what we observed, Jasmine said calmly, and asking why our confirmed seats were given away while others weren't. Patricia crossed her arms. Look, these decisions are made by our computer system based on various factors. If you don't like the airline's policies, you're free to fly with someone else. A group of passengers walked by, and Patricia plastered on a smile, nodding at them. Pleasantly. The moment they passed, her expression hardened again. There's absolutely nothing that can be done, she said with finality. Either accept the economy seats or miss your flight, that's your choice. Jordan felt her sister tense beside her. Jasmine was the more outspoken twin, and Jordan could tell she was struggling to keep her composure. May I ask one more question? Jasmine said, her voice carefully controlled. What factors does your computer system use to decide who gets bumped from their seats? Patricia's smile was thin. That's proprietary information. Of course, Jasmine nodded. It's just that everyone we've observed being accommodated in premium class today seems to share certain characteristics. And those who don't share those characteristics seem to be the ones getting bumped. The implication hung in the air between them. Patricia leaned forward slightly. Maybe you should fly with an airline that caters more to your demographic, she suggested, her voice just low enough that passing travelers couldn't hear. Jordan felt as if she'd been slapped. She glanced around the terminal, suddenly acutely aware of being watched by curious eyes, of whispers behind hands, of the feeling of being other in a space where everyone else belonged. Our demographic? Jordan repeated, unable to keep the tremor from her voice. What exactly do you mean by that? Patricia shrugged. Take it however you want. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual problems to solve. She turned to walk away. We're not finished, Jasmine called after her, louder than she intended. Several heads turned their way. Patricia spun around, her face flushed with anger. Yes, we are. Unless you'd like me to call security? Creating a disturbance in an airport is taken very seriously these days. An older couple nearby stopped to stare, and Jordan felt her cheeks burn with humiliation. The woman whispered something to her husband, who frowned in their direction. We're not creating a disturbance, Jordan said quietly. We're just asking to be treated fairly. Life isn't fair, Patricia said coldly. Your economy seats are waiting. I suggest you take them before they're gone too. As she walked away, another airline employee who had been watching the exchange approached them hesitantly. I'm sorry, she whispered, glancing over her shoulder to make sure Patricia was out of earshot. This isn't right. What's happening to you? Hope flickered in Jasmine's chest. Can you help us? The woman looked pained. I wish I could. But Patricia is the boss here. She's been doing this for years, and nobody stands up to her. I need this job. She was called away before she could say more, leaving the twins standing alone amidst the bustle of travelers. Did you get all that? Jasmine asked quietly. Jordan nodded, slipping her phone back into her pocket. She'd been recording the entire conversation. They walked slowly back to their quiet corner of the terminal, the weight of what had just happened settling on their shoulders. Around them, the airport continued its normal rhythm, announcements echoing overhead, reunion hugs, tearful goodbyes. But for the twins, everything had changed. I've never felt so invisible, Jordan said, her voice barely above a whisper. Like we don't matter. Like we're not even people to them. Jasmine reached for her sister's hand, something they hadn't done since they were small children. We matter, she said firmly. And what just happened wasn't about seats on a plane. It was about something much bigger. Jordan nodded, squeezing her twin's hand. I know. And we can't let it stand. They sat in silence for a moment, the noise of the terminal fading into the background as they processed what had happened. Remember, last year, Jasmine said finally, when Dad told us about that discrimination lawsuit against Air West, how the company denied it until someone had proof? Jordan looked at her phone where the recording was safely saved. We have proof. And we have a voice, Jasmine added. Not everyone does. The decision crystallized between them without words, as so many decisions did for the twins. They'd never used their father's position for personal gain, had always insisted on making their own way in the world. But this wasn't about special treatment. This is bigger than us, Jordan said. Jasmine nodded, pulling out her phone. Time to make that call. Jasmine's thumb hovered over her father's contact for just a moment before she pressed call. The phone rang 3 times before he answered. Hey, sweetheart, aren't you supposed to be in the air by now? Her father's deep voice was warm with affection. Jasmine put the phone on speaker so Jordan could hear too. The airport noise around them faded as they huddled close to the device. Dad, we've run into a problem at the airport. Jasmine tried to keep her voice steady, but the emotion of the past hour caught in her throat. Their father, Anthony Williams, immediately picked up on the tension in his daughter's voice. What's happening? Are you both okay? Jordan leaned closer to the phone. We're okay physically, Dad, but... She glanced at her sister, who nodded encouragingly. We're being discriminated against by the airline staff. There was a brief silence. On the other end of the line, the twins could hear the muffled sound of a door closing as if their father had stepped into a private space. Tell me everything, he said, his voice calm but serious. Take your time. The twins took turns explaining what had happened, how they'd been told their premium seats were no longer available despite having confirmation, how other passengers were being checked into premium seats without issue, and finally, the station manager's comment about their demographic. We recorded most of it, Jasmine added. The last conversation with the station manager is all on video. Send it to me, their father said. They could hear the controlled anger in his voice, not directed at them, but at the situation. Where are you now? Still at the check-in area? No. We're sitting in a quiet corner near Gate 27, Jordan replied. Our flight leaves in 2 hours, but we haven't gone through security yet because we don't know what to do about the tickets. They heard keyboard clicks in the background as their father typed something. Dad, Jasmine said hesitantly, we've never asked you to step in for us before. And you're not asking now, he finished for her. You're reporting a serious ethical breach at a competing airline. This isn't about getting special treatment, Jasmine. This is about right and wrong. Jordan sighed with relief. Their father understood exactly why they'd called. We weren't sure if we should, Jordan began. You did the right thing, Anthony interrupted gently. I'm proud of you both for handling this situation with dignity and for standing up for yourselves. Now I need you to send me that video right away. Jasmine pulled her phone away from her ear and quickly texted the video to her father. Nearby, a family with small children was laughing as they shared snacks from a paper bag. An elderly couple dozed in their seats, heads leaning together. The normal, everyday scenes of the airport continued around them, making what had happened feel even more surreal. Got it, their father said a moment later. I'm watching it now. The twins waited in silence, hearing only their father's breathing through the phone. After a minute, they heard him exhale sharply. This is completely unacceptable, he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. Patricia Caldwell, the station manager. I know exactly who she is. You do? Jordan asked, surprised. The airline industry isn't that big at the senior level, he explained. She's been with Transatlantic for 15 years. I've met her at industry events. Dad, we don't want anyone to lose their job, Jasmine started, suddenly feeling a twist of worry in her stomach. This isn't about one person's job, sweetheart. This is about a culture that allows this kind of behavior. If it's happening to you, 2 educated young women with resources and knowledge of your rights, imagine how many others have been treated this way who couldn't fight back. The twins exchanged glances. They hadn't thought about it that way. What are you going to do? Jordan asked. First things first, you 2 sit tight. Don't leave the terminal. I'm going to make some calls. Dad, our flight leaves in less than 2 hours, Jasmine reminded him. Trust me on this. Stay where you are. There was a note of determination in his voice that the twins recognized from childhood. It was the same tone he used when he was about to move mountains to fix a problem. We trust you, Jordan said softly. I'm stepping out of my board meeting now. Give me 30 minutes. And girls? Yes? They answered in unison. Remember what I've always told you. Your worth isn't determined by how others treat you, but you never have to accept being treated as less than who you are. I love you both. Sit tight. The call ended, and the twins looked at each other. What do you think he's going to do? Jordan asked, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Jasmine shook her head. I don't know. But whatever it is, it's going to be big. They sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the flow of travelers through the terminal. An announcement echoed overhead, calling for a passenger who had left their laptop at security. I feel weird, Jordan admitted finally, like we've broken some unspoken rule by calling Dad. Jasmine nodded slowly. I know what you mean. We've always been so determined to make it on our own terms. But this is different, isn't it? It is, Jordan agreed. This isn't about us getting special treatment. This is about basic respect. And not just for us, Jasmine added. Like Dad said, if they did this to us, they're doing it to others too. A group of business travelers walked past pulling sleek carry-on luggage. One woman met Jasmine's eye and smiled briefly. Such a normal human interaction, so different from what they'd experienced at the check-in counter. Do you remember Ms. Wilson from 5th grade? Jordan asked suddenly. Jasmine smiled at the memory. Of course. Best teacher we ever had. Remember what she told us when those boys kept saying girls couldn't be good at math? She said, sometimes standing up for yourself means standing up for everyone who comes after you. Jasmine reached over and squeezed her sister's hand. Ms. Wilson would be proud of us today. They settled back in their seats, checking the time occasionally. 20 minutes passed, then 25. Jasmine was about to suggest they get something to drink when her phone buzzed with a text from their father. Look toward the main entrance of the terminal. Both sisters turned to look. A group of people in suits had just entered, walking with purpose. At the front was a tall man whose face they recognized instantly from airline advertisements and news interviews. Robert Chen, the CEO of Transatlantic Airlines himself. Behind him followed a group of airline executives, all looking extremely serious. They headed straight for the Transatlantic check-in counters, where they huddled with staff who suddenly looked very nervous. Oh my God, Jordan whispered. Dad called the CEO. Not just any CEO, Jasmine murmured back. The CEO of the entire airline. Their phones buzzed again with another text. Stay where you are. They'll come to you. The twins watched as Patricia, the station manager who had dismissed them earlier, was called over to the group. Even from a distance, they could see the color drain from her face as Robert Chen spoke to her, gesturing with what appeared to be a tablet, likely showing the video the twins had recorded. I think, Jasmine said slowly, this is about to get very interesting. The twins watched as Robert Chen, CEO of Transatlantic Airlines, spoke animatedly to Patricia and the other airline staff. Even from across the terminal, they could see Patricia's stiff posture and defensive gestures. The other staff members looked down at their feet, clearly uncomfortable. I feel like we're watching a movie, Jordan whispered. Except we're in it, Jasmine replied. A few minutes later, Robert Chen looked up and scanned the terminal. When his eyes found the twins, he said something to his team and began walking toward them, followed by two other executives. Oh, they're coming over, Jordan said, nervously smoothing her shirt. Jasmine straightened her back. Remember what Dad always says, look people in the eye and speak with confidence. As the CEO approached, the twins stood up. He was tall and distinguished, with salt and pepper hair and a serious expression that softened slightly as he reached them. Jasmine and Jordan Williams? He asked, extending his hand. I'm Robert Chen, CEO of Transatlantic Airlines. These are my colleagues Lisa Patel, our Chief Operating Officer, and Thomas Washington, our Head of Customer Experience. The twins shook hands with each executive, noticing how different this treatment was from what they'd experienced earlier. Please sit down, Robert said, gesturing to their seats. The executives pulled over chairs to join them, forming a small circle in the busy terminal. Travelers walked past, some glancing curiously at the unusual sight of airline executives in full suits sitting in the public waiting area. First, Robert began, looking each twin in the eye. I want to personally apologize for the treatment you received today. It was unacceptable, discriminatory, and goes against everything our company claims to stand for. His words were sincere, his tone genuinely regretful. There was no corporate doublespeak, no attempt to minimize what had happened. I've reviewed the video you recorded, he continued, and I've spoken with the staff involved. There is no excuse for how you were treated. Lisa Patel leaned forward. We've also checked your reservation details. You absolutely had confirmed premium seats that were paid for months ago. The claim that they were lost to overbooking was false. The twins exchanged surprised glances. So we weren't even bumped because of overbooking? Jordan asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. Thomas Washington shook his head, clearly uncomfortable. No, your seats were still available. They were deliberately reassigned. The implication hung in the air. I see, Jasmine said quietly. Patricia Caldwell has been removed from duty, effective immediately, Robert continued, as have 2 other staff members involved in this incident. We're conducting a full investigation, but I wanted you to know that immediate action has been taken. Jordan bit her lip. We didn't necessarily want anyone to lose their job. Robert held up his hand. This isn't just about today. Our preliminary review of customer complaints suggests this may be part of a pattern. Your experience has brought it to light in a way we can't ignore. A flight announcement echoed overhead. A child laughed somewhere nearby. Life in the airport continued around their small circle, but for the twins, time seemed suspended in this surreal moment. Your father is Anthony Williams, Robert said, stating rather than asking. I've known him professionally for years. He's a respected figure in our industry. When he called me about what happened to his daughters, I was shocked, not just because of who you are, but because this should never happen to anyone. We don't usually mention who our father is, Jasmine explained. We've always wanted to stand on our own. Robert nodded. I understand, and I respect that. But today, your call did more than just fix your own situation. It may help change things. For many others. Lisa pulled out her tablet. Now, about your trip to Paris, your premium seats have been restored, of course. Additionally, we'd like to upgrade you to first class with our compliments. That's not necessary, Jordan began. Please, Lisa insisted. It's the least we can do, Thomas added. We've also arranged for VIP service through security and priority boarding. Our lounge is available to you until your flight with all amenities. The twins looked at each other, having a silent conversation as they often did. Thank you, Jasmine said finally. We appreciate that. But more importantly, we'd like to know what steps Transatlantic will take to ensure this doesn't happen to anyone else. The executives exchanged glances, perhaps surprised by the question. Robert Chen leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. A fair question, he acknowledged. In the immediate term, we're reviewing all recent customer complaints for similar patterns. By tomorrow, we'll have an outside consultant beginning a comprehensive audit of our customer service practices and training. Lisa added, we're also establishing an emergency meeting of our Diversity and Inclusion Committee, which will take place before the end of the week. And longer term? Jordan pressed gently. Robert looked at her with genuine respect. Longer term? That's something I'd like your input on, actually. Once you return from Paris, would you be willing to meet with our team to share your thoughts on how we can do better? The twins were momentarily speechless. This was not at all what they had expected when they'd called their father less than an hour ago. We would be happy to, Jasmine said. A young airline employee approached the group hesitantly, clearly intimidated by the presence of so many executives. Excuse me, Mr. Chen, she said. The documents you requested are ready. Thank you, Kelly, Robert replied. He turned back to the twins. We've prepared new boarding passes and lounge access cards for you. Kelly will escort you through security to our first-class lounge where you can relax until your flight. The executive stood, and the twins followed suit. Ms. Patel and Mr. Washington will handle the remaining details, Robert said. I need to address the rest of the staff about what's happened today. He shook hands with each twin again. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. It shouldn't have taken a call from your father to make this right, but I'm grateful that call was made. Travel safely. As Robert walked away, Lisa gestured toward the security checkpoint. Shall we? The twins gathered their bags, still processing everything that had happened. As they walked, Thomas spoke quietly. Your father made 3 calls, he said. First to Robert, then to his company's legal team, and then to the aviation authority. He made it clear this wasn't just about his daughters being inconvenienced, but about a serious violation that needed addressing. That sounds like Dad, Jordan said with a small smile. He's a powerful advocate, Thomas acknowledged. But what's impressed us most is how you handled this situation. You stood up for yourselves with dignity. You documented what happened. You gave us a chance to make it right. They reached the priority security line where an agent was waiting specifically for them. Your father should be proud, Lisa said, handing their documents to the security agent. Not because you called him when you needed help, but because of the people you've clearly become. As they said goodbye to the executives and headed through security, Jasmine turned to her sister. Did that actually just happen? She whispered. Jordan shook her head in amazement. I think it did. And I think it's not over yet. She was right. As they collected their belongings on the other side of security, both their phones buzzed with a message from their father. Proud of you both. This is just the beginning. We'll talk when you land in Paris. Enjoy the flight. You've earned it. 3 months after their trip to Paris, Jasmine and Jordan stood in front of the gleaming Transatlantic Airlines headquarters. The glass building reflected the bright morning sun, making it shine like a beacon against the blue sky. Ready for this? Jasmine asked, adjusting the collar of her blazer. Jordan took a deep breath and nodded. As ready as I'll ever be. The twins had enjoyed their Paris vacation, but today felt more important than any sightseeing they'd done. Today, they were returning to Transatlantic Airlines, not as passengers but as invited speakers. In the lobby, they were greeted by Thomas Washington, who had met them at the airport 3 months earlier. The Williams sisters, he said warmly, shaking their hands. Thank you for coming. Everyone's gathered in the main conference room on the 10th floor. As they rode the elevator up, Thomas filled them in on what had happened since their flight to Paris. The internal investigation was completed last month, he explained. Patricia Caldwell was officially terminated, along with 4 other managers who had similar complaints filed against them. 4 others? Jordan asked, surprised. Thomas nodded. Once we started digging, we found a pattern. After your experience became known within the company, other employees came forward with stories they'd been afraid to share before. The elevator doors opened onto a bustling floor of offices. People looked up from their desks as the twins walked by, some smiling, in recognition. Word gets around, Thomas said, noticing their surprise. You two have become something of a legend here. The main conference room was packed with people, at least 100 airline employees from all levels of the company. At the front of the room, Robert Chen stood chatting with a diverse group of people wearing Passenger Advocacy Board badges. Our new advisory board, Thomas explained quietly. Regular travelers from different backgrounds who review our policies and training. Robert's idea, inspired by your experience. Robert spotted them and walked over. Jasmine, Jordan, welcome. Thank you for agreeing to speak today. Your story has already changed how we operate. He led them to the front of the room where 2 chairs had been placed beside a small podium. Everyone, Robert addressed the room, please welcome Jasmine and Jordan Williams. The applause was genuine and warm as the twins took their seats. Robert continued. 3 months ago, these young women experienced discrimination at one of our check-in counters. Instead of staying silent, they spoke up. Their courage forced us to confront some uncomfortable truths about our company culture. The room was completely silent now, all eyes on the twins. I've asked them here today to share their experience directly with you, because real change starts with listening to uncomfortable stories. Jasmine, Jordan, the floor is yours. Jasmine stepped up to the podium first. The sisters had practiced what they wanted to say, taking turns to tell different parts of their story. 3 months ago, my sister and I were excited to fly to Paris, Jasmine began. We had no idea that checking in for our flight would turn into one of the most humiliating experiences of our lives. She described how they were told their premium seats had been given away, while watching other passengers being checked in without issues. She spoke plainly, without accusation but without sugarcoating what had happened either. Jordan took over next, describing the conversation with Patricia Caldwell and her comment about their demographic. In that moment, we felt invisible, Jordan said, her voice steady but emotional. We weren't seen as customers who had paid for a service or even as people deserving of basic respect. We were seen only for the color of our skin. The room was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming. We called our father, Jasmine continued, not because we wanted special treatment, but because what happened to us was wrong. And we knew it wasn't just about us. If this was happening to us, two educated women with resources and knowledge of our rights, what was happening to others who didn't have the same advantages? For the next 20 minutes, the twins took turns speaking about their experience and its aftermath. They spoke honestly about their hesitation to use their father's connections, about how they had always wanted to make their own way in the world, but also about recognizing when standing up for yourself means standing up for others too. What happened after our father's call was extraordinary, Jordan said. The response from Transatlantic's leadership showed us what accountability looks like. But it shouldn't take having a CEO on speed dial to be treated with dignity. As they concluded their presentation, the room erupted in applause. Several employees had tears in their eyes. One older flight attendant in the front row nodded vigorously throughout their talk, occasionally whispering yes or, "That's right." Robert Chen returned to the podium. "Thank you, Jasmine and Jordan, for your honesty and courage. Now I'd like to share with you and with our guests the changes we've implemented since this incident." He clicked a button and a presentation appeared on the screen behind him. It outlined a comprehensive anti-bias training program that all customer-facing staff were now required to complete. It showed revised customer service protocols designed with input from the new Passenger Advocacy Board. It detailed a reporting system that made it easier for both customers and employees to flag concerns about discriminatory behavior. But perhaps most importantly, Robert said, turning to the twins, we've established the Williams Scholarship Fund for minority students pursuing careers in aviation. This was news to the twins, who exchanged surprised glances. Named after your father? Jasmine asked. Robert smiled. Named after you two. Your father has been a force for change in this industry for decades. But it was your courage that day at the airport that sparked this particular transformation. The first scholarships will be awarded next fall to 5 students. After the presentation, many employees approached the twins to thank them and share their own stories. The older flight attendant who had been nodding during their talk waited until most people had left. "I've been flying for 33 years, she told them, her eyes bright with emotion. "I've seen things change, but not fast enough. What you two did, standing up like that, it matters. It really matters." Outside the building later that afternoon, the twins paused to look back at the gleaming tower. "When we called Dad that day at the airport," Jordan said, "did you ever imagine it would lead to all this?" Jasmine shook her head. "Not in a million years. I just wanted to get on our flight. And now there's a scholarship in our name," Jordan marveled. "It's surreal." Jasmine's phone buzzed with a text. It was from their father. "Proud of you both? Dinner tonight to celebrate?" "He knew we'd do well today." Jordan smiled. "He's always believed in us," Jasmine agreed, texting back a quick, "Yes." As they walked toward the parking lot, a young woman approached them, somewhat hesitantly. "Excuse me," she said. "Are you Jasmine and Jordan Williams? I recognized you from the company newsletter." The twins nodded. "I just wanted to say thank you," the woman continued. "I'm starting as a customer service trainee next week, and your story was part of our orientation materials. It's making a real difference." After she left, the twins stood in silence for a moment. "You know what Ms. Wilson would say about all this," Jordan said finally, referring to their beloved 5th grade teacher. Jasmine smiled. She'd say, when you stand up for yourself with dignity, you make space for others to stand tall too. Exactly. Jordan nodded. I think that's what we did without even meaning to. And it's just the beginning, Jasmine added, as they continued walking. Just the beginning.